It started with a text message that didn't feel like much at the time. Just a quick, harmless "Hey, you up?" from an old friend I hadn't seen in years. Her name was Maya. We'd known each other from college, had a bit of a spark back then, but life moved on and so did we, or so I thought. I was married now, settled, doing all the things a grown-up is supposed to do. My wife and I had built a life together. We had routines, plans for kids, a house with a mortgage, everything. But that one message pulled a thread I didn't even realize was loose. And before I knew it, the whole thing began to unravel. Maya said she was in town for a weekend and wanted to catch up. Just one night, she said. Nothing serious, just talk. At first, I laughed it off. Told myself there was no harm in grabbing a drink with an old friend. My wife was away visiting her parents that weekend, and I figured I'd just be sitting at home alone anyway. That's how it all begins, doesn't it? Not with a bang, but with something that feels completely innocent. We met at a bar downtown. It was loud, packed, and full of energy that I hadn't felt in a long time. Maya looked the same, confident, magnetic, like she owned the room just by walking in. We talked for hours. It felt like no time had passed at all. We laughed about old stories, shared updates on life, and for a while, I forgot about everything else. I wasn't thinking about my marriage, my responsibilities, or the fact that I should have never agreed to meet her alone. I was just in the moment. And in that moment, it felt good. But then the night started slipping. One more drink turned into 2. Then 3. And somewhere between the laughter and the memories, something shifted. She leaned in closer. Her hand brushed mine. And then, softly, she said it, just one night. I wish I could tell you I walked away. I wish I could say I remembered everything I had to lose and made the right choice. But the truth? The truth is messier. The truth is, I didn't see the line until I'd already crossed it. What happened next changed everything. Not just my marriage, but how I saw myself. And the worst part? The fallout didn't hit right away. It came slowly, like a quiet storm rolling in. Little signs. Awkward silences. A look in my wife's eyes that told me she knew something wasn't right. I thought I could hide it. I thought I could move on. I thought one night wouldn't destroy a lifetime. But I was wrong. This is the story of how one decision, one weak moment, cost me everything I thought was solid in my life. And if you're thinking it couldn't happen to you, well, I used to think the same. What came after that night? That's the part that still haunts me. And it all started with just one text. The next morning, everything felt different. Maya was already gone when I woke up. No note, no message. Just silence. I sat there staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My head was pounding, but the weight in my chest was worse. Guilt creeped in fast. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a betrayal. I knew it, even if I didn't want to admit it yet. I went home that afternoon and tried to act normal. My wife came back the following day, and I remember hugging her like nothing had happened. But something inside me had shifted. It was like I couldn't look her in the eye without feeling like a liar. She didn't say anything at first, but you know how people can feel when something's off. She kept asking if everything was okay, and I kept saying, yeah, just tired. Long week. I tried to blame work. Stress. Anything. But deep down, I was already starting to come apart. Over the next few weeks, I tried to convince myself it was a one-time thing. That it didn't mean anything. But the truth is, the memory didn't just fade. It lingered. Not because I wanted it to, but because I was afraid of what it said about me. I started checking my phone more often, half expecting Maya to reach out again, even though I hoped she wouldn't. And when she finally did, just a casual "Hey, how are you holding up?" It hit harder than I expected. I didn't respond. I couldn't. But I stared at that message for a long time. Meanwhile, my marriage kept slipping into this weird quiet space. My wife began noticing I was distant. I wasn't laughing like I used to. I wasn't present. She started asking more questions, and I started dodging more answers. I hated lying, but I hated the idea of telling the truth even more. I thought maybe if I just stayed quiet long enough, it would all go away. Spoiler, it didn't. Then came the night she found the message. I must have left my phone unlocked on the kitchen counter. I came back from taking out the trash and saw her standing there, holding it, her face pale and still. She didn't say a word. She just handed it back to me and walked upstairs. That silence, it was worse than any yelling could have been. I followed her up, my heart pounding, my mind spinning. I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't even know where to start. Because how do you explain something that you yourself barely understand? That was the moment I knew things would never be the same again. And the scariest part? This was just the beginning. That night, she didn't speak to me. Not during dinner. Not before bed. Not even a single word the next morning. It was like I didn't exist, and honestly, I didn't blame her. I kept replaying it all in my head, the message, the lie, the choice I made. I wanted to say something, anything, but every time I tried, the words just got stuck in my throat. How do you apologize for breaking someone's trust when you know the damage is already done? A few days passed in that same silence. We were two strangers in the same house. I'd leave for work early, come back late, pretending to be busy. She stopped asking where I was going. She stopped checking in. And that's when it hit me, she was pulling away. Not in anger. In heartbreak. And somehow, that made it worse. Anger, at least, gives you a chance to fight. But silence? Silence feels like the beginning of the end. That's when the questions started coming from friends. A couple of them noticed we weren't showing up together anymore. One even asked me if everything was okay at home. I laughed it off, said we were just dealing with some relationship stuff. But they knew something was off. People can tell when a couple's holding things together by a thread. I saw it in their faces. At work, I couldn't focus. My boss pulled me aside once, asking if I needed time off. I said no. But truthfully, my head was somewhere else, stuck in a loop of regret, guilt, and fear. I kept checking my phone for messages from Maya, even though I hated myself for it. She hadn't reached out again, but her name still sat there in the thread. One message. Still unread. Then there was my wife's sister, always protective, always watching. She came over one weekend with some excuse to drop off a book. I saw the way she looked at me. Like she knew something. Like maybe my wife had told her. Or maybe she figured it out on her own. Either way, I felt exposed. Every small conversation felt loaded. Every glance felt like judgment. The walls were closing in, and I still hadn't come clean. I was living in this space between truth and lies, waiting for something to explode. But nothing did yet. And that's what made it worse. Because when people stop yelling, when they stop fighting, you realize the real damage is happening in silence. And I was stuck in it. Drowning slowly. Still pretending it wasn't too late. It was a Friday night when everything finally cracked. We were sitting in the living room, the TV playing some random show neither of us was really watching. My wife was curled up on the far end of the couch, legs tucked under her, scrolling on her phone. I kept glancing at her, waiting for her to say something, anything. The silence between us was louder than the dialogue on screen. I couldn't take it anymore. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could get a word out, she looked up and said, "Are you in love with her?" Just like that. No emotion in her voice. No tears. Just the question hanging in the air like smoke. I froze. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to deny it, but the look in her eyes told me she already knew the answer. Maybe not the whole story, but enough. I shook my head slowly and whispered, no. It wasn't love. And that somehow made it worse. Her eyes glossed over, and for the first time in weeks, I saw real pain, not just distance. So it was just easy, then? Disposable, she asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't. That night turned into a long conversation, one of those slow, painful ones where every word feels like it's dragging you deeper into the hole. She asked everything. When it happened. Where? How? If it was more than once. I answered honestly, and every answer seemed to break something else in her. But she didn't cry. That's what got me. She didn't scream or throw things. She just sat there, unraveling quietly. That's when I realized, this wasn't just about what I did. It was about what it said to her. That I didn't value what we had enough to protect it. The next morning, she was gone. Not just out running errands. She'd packed a bag. Took her keys. Left a note on the counter that simply said, I need space. I sat there at the kitchen table for hours, staring at that note like it was written in a foreign language. I kept thinking back to that night with Maya. The words just one night playing over and over in my mind like a curse. I had no idea where my wife went, or if she'd even come back. All I knew was I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross, and now I was standing in the middle of the wreckage, waiting for the final fallout. I didn't hear from her for 4 days. No texts. No calls. Nothing. Every hour that passed felt like a week. I kept checking my phone, hoping for even a single message. Some clue that she was safe. Some sign that she was still thinking about us, about me. I tried calling her once. It went straight to voicemail. I left a message I barely remember recording, my voice shaky and unsure. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. Please come home. Or, just let me know you're okay. By the 5th day, I was a mess. I hadn't gone to work. I barely ate. I was sleeping on the couch, even though the bed upstairs was empty. Everything in the house still smelled like her. Her sweater was still on the chair in the hallway. Her coffee mug on the counter. But it felt like she'd been gone for months. That night, just when I was starting to spiral again, I heard the door. It was close to midnight. I jumped up, heart racing, thinking maybe she'd come back. But when I opened it, it wasn't her. It was Maya. I just stood there, stunned. I hadn't seen her since that night, and now here she was, standing on my porch like she belonged there. She looked calm. Too calm. Hey, she said, as if we were picking up from a normal conversation. I figured we should talk. I didn't let her in right away. My head was spinning. What are you doing here? I asked. She shrugged. You didn't respond to my message. I figured something was wrong. I didn't even know what to say. It felt surreal, like I was caught between two lives crashing into each other at the worst possible time. Then she dropped it. I think I'm pregnant. I don't even remember how long I stood there, not moving, barely breathing. Everything inside me just went cold. I thought I'd hit rock bottom before, but this felt like I'd just discovered a whole new level of hell. My first instinct was denial. You're sure? I asked, even though the question sounded stupid the moment it left my mouth. She nodded. I took 2 tests. I haven't been with anyone else. That sentence hit like a punch. I leaned against the doorframe, trying to process it. My wife was gone. My marriage was hanging by a thread. And now Maya was standing in front of me, possibly carrying my child. A child that never should have existed. A child born from one night that should have never happened. I wanted to scream, to run, to undo everything, but I couldn't. The weight of it all was suffocating. I told her I needed time. She said she understood, but the way she looked at me made it clear this wasn't going away. And just like that, the fallout wasn't just emotional anymore. It was real. Tangible. Life-changing. One night had already cost me my marriage. Now it might change the rest of my life forever. And the worst part? I hadn't even told my wife the full story. Not yet. I sat in the car outside her sister's house for nearly 20 minutes before working up the nerve to go in. My wife had been staying there since she left. I'd gotten the address from a mutual friend after days of silence. I didn't want to ambush her, but I knew if I waited any longer, the truth would find her in some worse, colder way. And after everything, she deserved to hear it from me. When her sister answered the door, she barely said a word. Just looked at me and stepped aside. I walked in and found my wife sitting at the dining table, wearing an old hoodie of mine. She looked tired, but calmer than I expected. Her eyes met mine, and there was no anger, just something that felt heavier than hate. Disappointment. I need to tell you something, I said, my voice dry. She nodded, as if she already knew this was coming. I sat down across from her and took a deep breath. Then I told her everything, about Maya showing up, the late-night visit, and the news she had dropped on me like a bomb. When I finally said the words, "She's pregnant," my wife just stared at me. No reaction. No flinch. Just silence. For a second, I thought maybe she hadn't heard me. Then, she spoke. "I already know," she said quietly. "She messaged me." My heart dropped. "What?" She pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. "She sent me a message the night she showed up. Told me everything. Said she thought I deserved the truth in case you didn't tell me yourself." It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I didn't even know Maya had her number. My wife stood up and walked toward the window. "I waited to see if you'd come clean." "You did, eventually. But you lied by silence first." I stood there, not even sure what to say. Apologies felt useless now. She turned to face me, tears finally breaking through. "I loved you. I trusted you. I was building a life with you. And you threw it away for one night." I didn't try to defend myself. I knew she was right. But then came the twist I never expected. "I'm pregnant too." Those words knocked the air from my lungs. I stared at her, not even sure I'd heard right. She nodded slowly. "I found out the day after I left. I hadn't told you yet because I was still figuring out what I wanted." Everything around me spun. 2 pregnancies. 2 women. One life I'd completely lost control of. I reached out, desperate, broken. "What do we do now?" She stepped back. "We don't do anything. I'm keeping the baby. But you and I, we're done." That was it. The end of my marriage. And the start of something I never could have imagined. One night. 2 lives forever changed. And a third on the way that I never even saw coming. It's been almost a year since that day at her sister's house. Sometimes it still feels like it just happened. Other times, it feels like a different lifetime. My wife followed through on her word, she moved out for good. We handled the divorce quietly. No big drama. No messy court fights. Just papers signed and hearts quietly broken. She's now living in a small place a couple towns over, closer to her family. We don't talk much, except the occasional update about the baby. Yes, she kept it. A boy. He's due in a few weeks. As for Maya, things didn't unfold the way I expected. We tried talking more after everything came out. Not because I wanted a relationship, but because I felt responsible. I offered to be there for the baby, and I meant it. But the truth is, Maya had her own plans. She eventually told me she didn't want anything from me, not money, not involvement, not contact. She made it clear that Knight had meant more to me than to her in a strange, twisted way. She'd already decided she'd raise the child alone. I think a part of her just wanted to shake my world, and she succeeded. Now, I'm living alone in an apartment that's way too quiet. No baby toys. No scent of her shampoo on the pillow. Just empty rooms and too much time to think. I go to work, come home, eat dinner alone. I don't look for distractions anymore. I've had enough of those. The weight of everything that happened still sits with me, but it's changed me. I don't blame anyone else anymore, not Maya, not even my ex-wife. It all comes back to one decision. One night. And the truth is, I knew better. If you've made it this far listening to my story, maybe you're wondering what the takeaway is. It's not just about infidelity. It's about honesty, about how we treat the people who trust us most. About how fast one selfish moment can turn into a lifetime of consequences. Infidelity isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet and slow, wrapped in excuses and hidden behind guilt. But no matter how it looks, it leaves damage you can't undo. I lost the woman who loved me, the life we were building, and the future we'd dreamed of. And now I'm preparing to be a father to a child who may grow up never knowing me, depending on how things go. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's mine to carry. This isn't the ending I imagined for myself. But it's the one I earned. And maybe that's what life is sometimes, a long road of learning the hard way. So if you're listening, take this as a quiet warning, protect the good things in your life. Because once they're gone, no apology, no explanation, and definitely no one-night stand can ever bring them back. 23.